Good morning, everybody. Oh, good. Yeah, I will totally do that. Whatever your so web me, I'm gonna add you to my block list. All right. And so now it's morning, and we are here again. Here we are, face to face, a couple of silver spoons. Okay. For reasons that I don't even know, I got myself started in the idea of looking at going through my photographs and looking at all the things in my photographs here. And I'm like, well, all the things in my photographs, but none of them are really required to share with you guys. So what I'm doing is I'm putting all of my notes in the notes field. Like when I refill my car, every time I refill my car, I take a picture of the gas pump and then take a picture of the mileage on my dashboard. There's literally nobody on here. I'm talking to no one. Let's do something like hip hop or something. The only person on here is a bot. I don't like bots. So I was going through here and I'm like, hey, all those times I took pictures of my car's dashboard, I should probably put it in my car information folder, which is the information on my car. I know, you're shocked. You're shocked, I tell you, you're shocked. But I went through every time I refilled my car. I took a picture of the gas pump and then I took a picture of the dashboard so I could get my mileage and all that stuff. And I realized that's an amazingly useful way of tracking my car's life. Because the one of the drawbacks to having a gas car is that their lifespan is not that great as far as cars go. And especially now that we are starting to look at, I was going to say this setup's been going on for a while, and it hasn't. It's just that it's been a while. It's just been a couple of 100 years since the beginning of this year, I've noticed. So there's that. So anyway, still kind of looking for this way, I'm just going to finish this little job here, which was me doing a mileage check. Because if I have this going, I'm able to see what the lifespan of my vehicle is. Right? Still haven't heard from. I kind of feel like my entire life is kind of on hold for July. Like, we're coming up on July really quickly here. We only have about 11 days left in June. And I'm working a whole bunch of those days. And I'm sitting here going, okay, but what's my July look like? Because I haven't gotten my records yet or haven't gotten my orders yet for July. And I haven't been able, or I haven't heard from Nate to see what even tomorrow is, or day after tomorrow is. So I'm like, I don't even know what day after tomorrow looks like now. I'm like, you're not good, you know. It's kind of funny. Wow. A lot of refilling of gas here. Not sure what was going on there. Went to the gas pump twice, and there's only one picture between the two. Kind of creepy. Wow, there's a lot. Oh, I'm starting to work at school. That's part of it. Brent, you're here. Good to see you, my friend. For a while there was 0 people here. And I was like, well, I mean, guess that's what's going on. Before you showed up here, I was working on something which is kind of boring. Every time I fill my car up, I'll take a picture of the dashboard, and then I'll take a picture of the gas pump. So that way I have how many gallons did I fill up, and what was my odometer reading at the time, and things like that. So what I'm doing at the moment is just pulling those out and putting them in my little car information folder, which is supposed to give me oh, and here's where I caught COVID. I also have a medical folder where I keep all the things that are medical about me. What is this? That's a bill. So, oh, and my favorite little hobby store. Hello, some user. My favorite little hobby store is closing down, and that's kind of sad. Or has already closed down, I guess I should say. The building is vacant now. I went by to visit it because we had time to burn. We were down in that part of town, and I was like, you know what? Let's just stop over by Thompson's Hobbies, and maybe we can kind of wander around and see what's going on. And we pulled in to see a sign that said, you know, we closed, and it was about a month old. Thompson Hobbies, literally, I walked to that hobby shop from my high school to get paints and things for my my animation club when we were painting cells. And no more game stores. I'm just sad. I mean, I know this is the way it works. I know this is the nature of the beast. But it's like every piece of my history slowly disappears, as is all of us. I mean, that's true of everybody, you know. But I mean, and maybe I'm just a little strange because I happen to live in the same town as I grew up in, and so it's a little different in that being here, Oh yeah. So in other words, for you, effectively, it's zero, even though there is, but effectively, it's zero. I get that. So, yep, it's totally it is what it is, guys. I literally took like 1,000 pictures while I was at the boat museum. It was a good museum. I liked it. It was a lot of fun. But the boat museum was me in Portland. All I've got to say is this engine signaler has seen things. It's seen things. Just so you know. Okay. We're almost at the end of this because this is all the trip of Portland, which was what, last week? So I know I filled the car up one more time. Then I can call this done. Stop. Don't. That's not what you're supposed to do. George is like, hey, I can jump up onto the screen. No, you really can't. Yeah, really can't. There's Iacon. Here's the filling up that I just did. And I think I did it twice. No. Nope. And then there's Sakura Festival, which was last week. And I found some things, man. All right, let's close those because that was fun, but now I want to get to work. All right, back to work for us. So I managed to get this set up in a way that I like. What we're doing now, some user, is manga has a couple of things that normal comic books do not do. And one of those is what's called the mise goma. The mise goma is the view frame or the frame that we see. So, for example, and it's usually given a lot of real estate on the page. For example, this is the mise goma for this page, and I made them red so that I can remember that that's the mise goma, so that I know that I've done it, because otherwise I'm not going to remember that I did it. So we're putting in pages that can be used as back or for the big final version of this, right? So here we are. And this really is the Misegoma. I also want to talk about like design and layout. When I'm in this mode right here where I'm trying to enact a procedure, I'm not good at creative because I'm in left brain mode right now. So I'm having kind of a problem because looking at this, I'm like, well, I mean, all of my pages look the same. 1, 2, huge, 1, 2. And I'm like, they all look the same. There's no, like, it's not shaking up the pattern any. And so I'm like, okay. I mean, we'll get there. It's just irritating. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, now they're boring. I don't want them to be boring. So we're going to try to shake it up a little. Putting the Misegoma like this. Right. And all I'm doing here is just saying these are where I want my squares to be. And this is going to be my Misegoma. Right? And that finishes that scene. The entire first part of this comic is now ready to go to real pages. The scripting is done. Every word is in. All the words are in. We've got all the pieces together, and it's ready to rock and roll. Now we have to do this scene. This scene's already kind of done. And then we got to do this little scene, and then this guy's out. Which is what we're going to do today. And I'm going to play the old game of Can I Stay Awake? This morning I really don't want to. So guys, I've got some user and Brent on here. Let's talk about something that's kind of starting to bug me in the back of my brain. What was that? Weird. The sort of exclusion of Mayrel kind of goes against my utopia. You know what I mean? Like, the story's original design is to be similar to Star Trek in that the unity is a utopia, and all the other areas around it are not. Thus, giving me conflict, not internally, right? No internal conflict on Star Trek, just external conflict. But having Mayrel be sort of and excluded out of the unity is kind of a problem. So I'm trying to think about kind of that problem there and how to deal with that. Am I being clear or am I being weird? Am I being weird? Anyway. It's story, so it has nothing really to do with astronomy or Star Trek or astrology. You do understand that astrology and astronomy are two different words, right? Astrology is the pseudoscience of planets and constellations controlling your life. So you were born under the sign of Gemini, therefore you have two different personalities, you know. So astrology is like that. That's the, oh, let me read your palm and tell you that the stars control your destiny and stuff. That's astrology. Astronomy, of course, is then the actual science of stars and space and things like that. So I have a small amount of disdain for astrology. Like, I don't find it's anytime anybody says something like, well, Mercury is in retrograde, then I will say the only planets that are in retrograde are Venus and Uranus, and stop them. Then they're like, Venus isn't in retrograde. And I'm like, Venus is always in retrograde. And that's the difference between astrology and astronomy, right? In astronomy, Venus does actually slightly roll backwards just a little bit. So it's going backwards. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. I do. I don't. I don't know if I agree, and that's kind of the point. So, some user, what I'm talking about is this. Star Trek, one of the things that people like the most about Star Trek is it's hopeful, right? In the Star Trek universe, we all, kind of got cranky for a little, and then we started joining together and being a team, and we went out amongst the stars and we met all of these other aliens, and humans were cool, and we got over it. That's part of why Trekkies are so firmly into Star Trek. is because it's a positive view of the future. It's not dystopian. It doesn't show the future of us. It shows all of us that this is the future where all of us just got over all of our differences and built huge spaceships and traveled everywhere. Um, yeah, yeah, you're probably right. So what I'm having a problem with is Mayrel in this story, not in Star Trek, because this isn't Star Trek. This is my story. The character Mayrel comes from a group of human beings that left our human colonies and went a different direction. And she's like the Romani, the gypsies. She's part of that group of people now who are kind of separate. And then I was like realizing that goes against sort of my original design, which is to have this be a utopia, the same sort of thing as Star Trek. Yeah, maybe. And maybe it is just people who stay in one place. And maybe that's what I'm trying to say. So, like, the people who stay in one place, the dirt siders or whatever we called them. I take that there and put that there. Dusters, yeah. We called them dusters. Oh yeah, I love that song. I love that ship. Oh, that whole play is kind of cool. I don't know if you have access to the whole play, but it's actually kind of cool. It has a lot of 70s feel to it, which is when I think it actually was kind of put out. Like it was put out in the late 70s or early 80s. So it's got kind of that 70s disco booka chicka booka chicka booka chicka booka chicka sound to it that you get from that era. But I think that's That's a good song. It is often funny when I hit my own bias. And one of the great biases that I talk about a lot with is the American bias, which is the assumption that everybody in the world has seen everything that America does. Like you naturally know everything that happens here, and it's rare for me to hit a bias like that. It's very rare. Um, but this time I just did because you were talking about that. And I'm like, it's War of the Worlds, some user. That's obvious, you know. And then I realized, wait a minute, you're not American. It's not a given that you know these things. You might, and that's totally cool, but it's not a given. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't assume that you know these things. War of the Worlds was written by an author named H.G. Wells. He was an American author who wrote some of the earliest of what we call modern sci-fi. So the modern sci-fi genre sort of started with him to some degree. Um, so H.G. Wells lived in the late 1800s here in the U.S., and he started writing these fantastic stories. So he wrote some of the earliest sort of important pieces. He wrote The Time Machine, and he wrote this story, which was The War of the Worlds. The War of the Worlds was right. So the War of the Worlds, he wrote the War of the Worlds as if it was a documentary written by a writer who was in the middle of all of this. The book was written from that point of view, which was mind-boggling. So the whole book is written sort of as if, you know, here is my, Mystery Island is another one. You know, here's my account of what happened last week, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's written as if this guy was caught up in this War of the Worlds, and the Martians had come to Earth and were attacking, and they'd landed in the middle of Britain, in the middle of the UK, and they were landing all over the place. But this was a British reporter, so you know, this is what was going on. And he wrote the whole book that way. So it's sort of point of view from the character that's the main character. And the main character just wants to get to his girlfriend / wife. I don't know whether Carrie, I don't know what Carrie is to him, except that Carrie is, you know, is his lover of some sort. And that's the whole point of the story, is that. So the thing is that in the 30s, a radio station here in the US had an actor named Orson Welles, who, no relation, they're not related. I mean, they're probably related, but not directly. Orson Welles did a version of that on the radio. And when he did the same thing. The book is written from the point of view of the author. So Orson Welles did his radio show from the point of view of him. as if he was like, I'm here now, and oh no, they're coming up over the horizon, and they're melting people, so he did the whole story sort of like as if he was a reporter on the scene reporting this whole horrible thing. Well, so the end result was that, like, there was a panic. People started to panic in all the homes in Pennsylvania or wherever was around this radio station. They were listening to this story, and the radio station said, this is a fictitious story, an account of or we're taking the very popular story War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, and we're going to modify it for the modern times, because H.G. Wells wrote the story in 1890 and now it's 1930. It's been 40 years, so we're going to do it differently. And so they did this, but then people would tune in late, so they wouldn't hear that part. And all they tune in to hear is the things are coming over the tripods. They're coming over the wall now, and they're killing people. And you'd hear, and people go, yeah, and all this stuff, because they had the whole show, right? They were doing the whole thing, all the sound effects and everything. So there was a legitimate sudden panic all over Pennsylvania, where all of these people started to actually freak out. So we had to enact laws that said that you had to say that it was a radio show like every, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes or something. There was some time thing where you're supposed to break in and say, this is, WTBC in Los Angeles, and we're telling you that this is a radio show and not a real thing. Don't panic. So that's War of the Worlds gained a certain amount of notoriety because of both of those things, right? So it's part of not just our culture in science fiction, but part of our history as a country. So so the story itself then came back in, I think, the 1970s with that play. In the 1980s, there was a very amazing show that was put on called Special Bulletin, and it was a made-for-TV movie, which means it was a short movie. Well, or it was a movie, but it didn't have the budget of a big movie. And it was the same setup. It was, hi, I'm Bob Smith, and this is a special bulletin. We interrupt this program to give you this news report. And the whole thing was about terrorists had brought, domestic terrorists, they were Americans, had brought a nuclear bomb into the Bay of Charleston, South Carolina, and were demanding changes in the government. They were demanding the government make changes or they would detonate the nuclear bomb. And so it was always, we bring you this special report for live from Charleston Harbor is, Sarah Smith or whatever. And it would cut to her, and she would be like, we're here, and across the harbor you can see the boat right there, and we're not sure whether it actually has a nuclear bomb on it or not, but we're gonna wait here, and and it goes through the whole story, and it's 2 hours of sort of this progressing story told from the news reporters in this fictitious news thing. And I remember that when I watched it as a kid, I remember it had these break-ins where they'd break in and go, this movie is purely fictitious. No part of this is actually happening. I was like, there you go. It's 1985 or whatever, and here we are still suffering from the War of the Worlds radio show in 1930. It's just so funny. Anyway, absolutely one of my absolute favorites. I really do love it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But that is the story of the War of the Worlds. It's theoretically the story of 1890, and the Martians are attacking with Martian spaceships, and there's nothing you can do except, run. And even the Thunder Child tried to make a stop for it, and the Thunder Child was an ironclad. And that, I don't know if you're familiar with the term ironclad, but back in the day, boats were made of wood until until the U.S. Civil War, when we started putting together iron on our boats so it can take the cannon shot. And from that point forward, it was ironclads. Everything was an ironclad. The important ships would have iron on their hull, or, as we would say now, steel armor plates. Yeah, the artilleryman had the stupidest plan. Mother's best flower. That's awesome. Yep. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing about Tom Cruise. And some user don't read or don't use the spelling that Brent used there. That's not the way his name is spelled. He's being a doof. Tom Cruise is a high-paid star, and so when he gets involved in a movie, it's always the Tom Cruise hour. That's the way it'll always be. This is frustrating because it. That's awesome. Stop putting your claws in things, George. Especially since that's the end result every time. So this is kind of changing this page, I feel like. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is Misegomi. I was talking about that before. In manga parlance, a Misegomi is the visual frame. There's one frame that shows up on every page that is sort of the point of the page, right? So you're trying to make a point of the page. For example, looking at this page here of, I'll make this big again. Looking at this page, which is a page of Macross, right? And it's out of focus, but it doesn't really matter because you can kind of see the gist, right? So here we've got this panel here where essentially the big bad guy is summoning a character. But we know this character. We've met her. But we met her in the TV series and we met her in the movies. So it's kind of a big deal when finally she shows up. So this becomes what we call the Misegomi. It's the big part. It's the big frame. And the big frame is, she says right here, Ikuze Miria Roku Sankyu, right? And what she's saying is, it's time to go, Miria 639. And Miria is the main character, and she says, Ryokai, which is Roger, or understood, right? Ryokai. But this is a Misegomi. This page right here is Misegomi. If we go back a few pages, you can see the same thing, right? Looking at this page here, let's say, we've got, story, but the Misegomi is this one, and his head is above the actual frame, right? So I'm actually thinking I'm going to do something similar to that, because what you really want is to show and highlight his response. So this is where everything sort of stops. You're like, oh. So we're doing the same thing over here, right? We're talking about, where do we want people to stop and look and think, right? So we're doing the Misegomi right here. Actually, now that I mention it, I think I kind of want to go back over here because I'm looking at that smile there. And I'm kind of wondering a little bit like that here, which is put her head like this, right? In her hand, like she's incredulous. Like, yeah, you're serious, aren't you? You know, and have her break out of the frame up here, right? Because this is going to be a big moment with our characters here. And I kind of like the idea that she breaks out of the frame here and breaks out of the frame. So it's not just like she's saying something, she's so bombastic. She's so, everything and loud and just expressive that she's actually like breaking out of the frame of the picture. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that over here. It's one of my favorite pages, though, because we got Chang says, I think she's from Earth. And then nothing happens. So she goes, I mean, and then she gets about halfway through when Bennett goes, oh shit, you're serious? Like, she was like, that's a funny joke. You're not joking, you know? And so she stands up and like, you mean Earth? Like the Earth there were no spaceships on Earth? There were no people that knew anything beyond Earth? You know, and she's just rambling on in this rant. And so I kind of like this because it sort of has her breaking out of all of the areas here. It's cool. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm just going to check to see what we've got on my chatter feed. So some user, are you a science fiction fan or are you a passing science fiction fan? Like you like science fiction, but it's not your, like it's not where your heart lives. Because not like for example, for me, not only is science fiction where my heart lives, but Star Trek is where my heart lives. And like that's it's like that's my home base. When I'm sick, I'll sit there and just put on Star Trek episodes because it always makes me feel better. Like that kind of thing. I'm a ridiculous Star Trek fan. So the question is, are you one of those as far as science fiction goes? I know you're not with Star Trek, but with science fiction, are you one of those fans? Or are you kind of passing, you like fantasy and sci-fi equally? Or maybe you're into history and you know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking, because if you're a big fan of science fiction, I recommend the Dawn of Science Fiction books to read somewhere along the line. For example, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. All of those are at that very beautiful dawn of science fiction. They're core pieces. They're like, you can see all of, I mean, like, I'm not even talking about just American sci-fi. I'm talking about Japanese sci-fi. It has roots there, at this very dawn where the stories were stick. Steampunk. Oh, if you like steampunk, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, that's pretty much steampunk. Right? So, also Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I would call that steampunk. So steampunk, Yeah, steampunk very much came from revisiting that era. That's what steampunk's from. So we had the birth of science fiction at the late 1800s, right? Then through to the 30s comes the pulp science fiction age, and that's where you see Edgar Rice Burroughs come up um, with the Martian Chronicles and Tarzan, and he starts writing that. And then you move into the 40s and the 50s, and we get the atom punk science fiction of like Buck Rogers. And then you move into the 60s, and Star Trek, of course, changes science fiction in a great way, but it's a big hit in science fiction as to which direction it goes. After that, you get into about the 80s and the 90s here, and there's sort of a nostalgia for the birth of science fiction era. Right at the end of the 1800s, we were still in the Victorian era with the Victorian clothing, but we also had technology coming up online, right? We had the very beginning of a technological world. And that's where steampunk comes from, is sort of taking those early stories and running with it and kind of running with that universe and that world. So yeah, if you want to I would highly recommend some of those early science fictions: The Time Machine, Frankenstein, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Let's see what else. Some of those good books that are from that era. That's a good era. So if you're really into steampunk, that's a good era. I once did, long time ago, back before the world was new, I was going to do something like that. I'm going to go there and I'll find it for you. Hang on real quick. Doing this is hard. And I'm going to go a little over today. So we'll go a little bit past 11 o'clock. There's got to be audiobooks. However, you know what you can do? Go find the original Orson Welles radio play of War of the Worlds. It is wonderful, well composed, and Orson Welles has the most amazing voice. It's just so lovely. Just a beautiful voice. So highly recommend that. Absolutely. Where am I? Oh, I'm here. Like, what am I doing? What was I doing? In 1999, I was starting out trying to figure out how to merge 3D and 2D at the same time. And that's where I started working on this one. And I was doing steampunk. But this was the first time I had tried to use 3D mixed with 2D. And it's the character here is drawn on top of a 3D rendered background. And it was a series called that I was making called Legend of Innocence, and it was supposed to be um, a no, it was like Shiro. Yeah, it was supposed to be a steampunk, but I didn't know that there was a genre called steampunk. So I didn't even know it existed. And 5 years later, I took this and made one of my first animations out of it. I don't want to keep this one, but I do want to keep that one. Why did I close that? That's so weird. Oh, I know, because I hit open. Not. Have you ever? I don't think I've ever put any of my stuff up here. I think, though, if I do, it's going to end up triggering something's going to trigger the music, or the music will trigger. I don't know if I can show my animations on here without getting the strike for sharing, doing that with the music and stuff. So a long, long, long time ago. The animated Tamerlan. That's another one nobody knew I was doing. Started doing this animated Tamerlan comic, which was cool. I had a lot of fun with that. Someday I should finish this one. Where is it, though? I see the storyboards. I see all the storyboards. I don't see the actual animated Tamerlan animation. That's weird. I did do a Springs animation once. No, that's yes, it did. I started to some user and I were kind of reminiscing about stuff, and so I'm free associating because apparently I'm not happy with the way this is working, and so apparently I am. Yeah, I should. It'll only take 3 years. I know, because that's how long it took us to do things like this. So date. No, let's do size. Sort by size. Yeah, so the largest thing in here is sort by type, PSDs, JPEGs, and that's it. Why do I not have the things? Sweet. You could do voice acting if we ever get there. No, that's fine. Some user, do what you need to do. You've gotten me kind of... Oh, I do have that one. I still have that one. That's called Character Animator. Comes with Adobe Suite. I'm paying $50 a month for that. Yeah, I know. So I'm kind of there on that. It's totally fine, my friend. Do what you need to do. I'm looking around for something. I know somewhere in this, let's see here, star.avi. Let's see what happens. There's some weird little one-off Springs comics in here. That's kind of wild, actually. Let's see what it comes up with. All right. There it is. What are all of these? Oh, okay. Man. There we go. Here's the whole kit and caboodle. I wonder if the actual video is in here. I see all of the master files, so I could re-edit it if I needed to. The problem is I didn't call it something useful. This kind of looks like also I was doing other things in here. Like I had other ideas that weren't connected to this particular project, which doesn't help any because the ideas are cool, but they also don't help me get through this piece. Oh, here's all of the original. Oh, good. Not, horribly useful, but at least it's all the original masters for Tamerlane's The Last. Let's do that. Don't put that in there. I'll forget it, and then we'll lose it. Let's do start at ABI. Squishy. I think that's what it is. Okay, guys. Ready to roll with everybody and have this entire episode of this show be stricken? Here we go. Wait. Oh, that's a bummer. Here, let me try again. There. I think I have a better version of that. I feel like I have a better version of that somewhere. Because that wasn't quite everything. There was other stuff that we did. Like I did that later on, and I got a much better version of that. Right? So just so you guys know, I actually do animation. Yeah, this one here was like that one there. I think that'd be cool too. I should draw that one out someday because that was a pretty kick butt thing. I've got all the cells. Time for lunch. Time for you to go to lunch. You'll be back. You'll be back. Something. You will do da 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 dum. It seems like though I could find that somewhere. Like, why is it not in my animations folder? Because that's not the final version of that. Well, yeah, but some of us have a hard time with, ever doing anything. Like I don't ever remember the things that I'm supposed to remember. Like me. Like, where was that original version? That was a later version. That's why I'm trying to like go, why did that? Or that was an earlier version, I mean. There's no way there's not a single AVI in this. I'm just saying. No, that was definitely all digital. I like that picture right here. I had finally put in the shuttle bay for that ship. I like this one too. No, back one, please. There we go. I can get myself in all kinds of trouble by doing all kinds of things here. Someday I really need to like fix these things. I'm like all these pieces, parts of this. Like everything is all screwed up. I don't know where everything is anymore. So when I was in school, I did a lot of different animations. And some of them are better than others. I kind of like this one. But I mean, this is 2003, so, bear with me on this one. There we go. This is called a slate. Hmm. Yep. Over here. There we go. There you go. So some of my random weirder stuff that I've done in my I actually haven't. I just don't have the time for it at the moment. That's all. And I appreciate that. They are kind of I don't know. Oh, is this let's see if this one's good. Oh yeah. This was my very, very, very first one. Here, I'll show you my very first one. I'm like, I'm not doing work. What? Why would I do work? Ha! Instead, I'm going to sit here and do this. All right. This is my very first one. This is that steampunk one I was telling you about.
I am a legend from a time that you have forgotten, a time your grandfather's grandfather dreamed of, when he looked to the stars with a mist of hope in his eyes. I am that dream, nestled softly in the smell of musty books, and frozen between the tips of a metal box spatula. You will find me here.
And the answer, of course, is that, to like the question that invariably Brent was talking about, it takes forever to do these. Like, they're so hard to do by themselves. And I limited my animation so much just to get them done. And stop doing that, George. I limited my animations so much just to get them done in the 10-week span, because these were done each semester in my animation classes. And so during those 10-week spans, I had 10 weeks to do this in. It was just me. And so we'd start with day one and we'd be like, okay, well, we got to do another animation and stuff. And then I had to do it, which is why some of those things are just like really, really rough. The animation is really rough. It's because it's just 10 weeks of that. And I mean, I love this. I love doing this. This was so much fun. I really love animation. But, it's a thing. So, there you go. There were my little weird jaunts. As a side note, I actually did do a lot of work in animation later on with the team that did Animated Farragut. So the Animated Farragut you can find out on YouTube, because it's actually out there. Unlike this episode, which I'm absolutely sure is going to be. Hey, stop that. Weird cat. The cat's a pest. He's jumping up onto the screen. I've got a screen door right here, and he's jumping up onto the screen and holding onto the screen with his claws. It's cat-proof screening, but he can still break it, I mean, like, it wouldn't be hard for him to break it. So, anyway, 'tis the way this works. Someday on one of these shows, I will do something about this. And maybe we'll come back through and visit some of these and do them. That's cool. That's very cool. Someday I need to finish this one. I did a show one, or a thing once where I should finish this one on. So I did a comic once called Indestructible, Mr. Indestructible, and it was a short movie about a superhero. It was my short superhero movie, right? And I was doing good with it, and then I went to Japan, so couldn't finish it. But now looking back through the work here, I have the audio for it. Wow. My dad did the bad guy. Like the evil nemesis of Mr. Indestructible was my dad. So he recorded all of his lines and sent them to me. And now I'm looking at this going, wow, here's a whole bunch of stuff from my dad, where my dad did everything to help out. whenever he could. And so, like, one of the things he liked to do, because I was in animation, was he was trying to break into voice acting at the time. He wanted to be a voice actor. And so he would really take a piece of one of my stories and do the voice for it. So it was really nice, and he was, it was great to have him do that for me. And so I'm looking in here and going, wow. Like, I had all of my buddies do different characters, and all the storyboards are here. With all the storyboards, I could easily make this work. I mean, the storyboards are very, very simple, but yeah, there's a Mr. Indestructible, and he shows up. And then, so yeah, I did that. That's going to be fun. We should finish that someday. That'll be another one of those someday I'll finish this. All right. I should probably get back to work because we've done our little bit of wandering down memory lane. But I do need more coffee, which means that I'm thinking of going downstairs real quick and doing that. Some user, if you want to ask me any questions about how I work on animation, I'm not doing that anytime in the near future. Don't worry. Animation's hard. It takes forever, but it'd be a nice way to memorialize Dad, because that was nice of him to do the recording, and he did a lot of those for me. It's very weird. It was very cool, and some of the stuff was like, he did a Springs animation once for me, like, unbelievably. Here, I'll show you that one too. And then that's the last one. We're getting back to work. Here we go. A lot of clicking involved in all this. Okay, here we go. This is our last one. Where am I going here? That's all right. It's all good. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Here we go.
Hi there, welcome to my Science Corner. On today's show, nuclear devices and 3 simple steps to make them. First, we'll have a... Oh my, pardon me for a moment. Well, hello, TV. What a pleasant surprise.
Hi, IQ. Doing the Science Corner?
Why, yes. Why don't you come and join us? So, what brings you to the show?
The producer. He said he needed me to save him from a lawsuit or something, and I had to interrupt you before things got ugly.
I see. Say, TV, I have a question. If you don't have any hands, how exactly did you knock on my door?
Ancient Chinese secret.
Very well, then. I assume you have a question for us today?
Yes. So, I was told that black holes can sing. Is that correct?
Why, yes. Indeed, they do, my young fellow. Beautifully, in fact.
But you told me that sound needs air to travel in space. So how can you hear it to know what it's singing?
For this explanation, we have to go on a little ride. You see, the black hole that scientists detected the singing from is far away from us. It's in an area called Perseus, about 250 million light years from Earth,
Is that far away?
far enough away to be out of our galaxy. Hey, Ron!
It's huge.
Watch out. There's a little bit of gravity share around here. Gravity share. Now, see how your antenna is wiggling back and forth? That's due to the black hole squeezing and heating the cosmic dust all around us.
I see. It's just like a big, sucky, heaty thing. Well, I can't think of a good analogy. I guess I wouldn't do too good a job on Star Trek.
Perhaps not. Anyway, the heating and the squeezing causes waves in the dust.
Ah, like a rock in a pond. Star Trek, here I come.
Yes, but my microphone is turned off when I'm playing video. So I can't play this video and have my microphone be on. So I'm saying all of these things to you guys, but the microphone's off. So that's why. Again, and finish this video. It's only got like another 400 minutes left in it. That's all. It's like 2 hours long. I'm just kidding. I did see the thing you posted about AI. I know I am not familiar with Marshall Vandruff. The green guy is my dad. So that's his voice.
To some degree, but these waves work more like a speaker on a radio, moving the cosmic dust back and forth, which causes a sound.
Wait, I think I hear something. Very funny. So darn cute. What is this black hole singing?
Well, it's been singing the same note for billions of years, and that note is a very deep E flat. Some 57 octaves below middle C. All this is about the volume of what we're talking at now.
57 octaves? So I guess it's too deep a sound for me to really hear. Huh.
I'm afraid so.
Wow, kinda anticlimactic. I had to put up with all of your long-windedness, and I didn't even get to hear it sing the very night.
Unfortunately. Well, does that answer your... You like Barry Manilow?
Let's go home, darn cute.
Well, I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yes.
All right. Good question. Now, back to the nuclear device.
He wants a shoe, the kind with
We can probably stop there. You guys can get a guess of what's going on next there. It's just going to be Barry Manilow all the way to the end. The ball character was one of my fellow classmates, and she was in class with us in the animation class. So it was one of the things that we often did because we were all doing animations and we were doing them so fast and rapidly that really what we did was just grab random people in our class and had them say the voices for everything and record all the stuff. So anyway, there's your random animations for now. But yeah, the voice of the green guy, Don Q, that was my dad. He had a great voice, like super deep, really cool. I even had him before he passed away. I had him record a whole bunch of sounds for my phone. So my phone is him saying, incoming call from your wife, incoming call from your kid, all that stuff. So that now every time my phone rings, it's his voice, which kind of keeps him with me, It's the benefit of there are very few benefits of losing a parent early on in life, but I lost my mom when I was in my 20s and to a sudden heart attack. She just had a sudden heart attack and died. And so my dad outlived her by about 20 years. So we sort of discussed, what do you want to do? What pieces can I help you with to remember me once I'm gone, was sort of his thing. And that was one of the things I said was, hey, will you record a whole bunch of, names and incoming calls and stuff like that? So his voice is always with me, and I've saved those files in a safe place so that I can always, regardless of what phone I have, I can always reload the sounds onto a new phone. So that's sort of a thing. And I just let people accept the fact that my phone constantly speaks in my dad's voice. All right. We need to do on this page, kind of need to talk about the mess hall. Yeah. What I would recommend for you, my friend, is my dad and I did this. No, it's totally fine. Dad and I sat down and I took just a portable recorder and set it on the table between us. And I had him tell me all the stories of his childhood and tell me stories that he remembered of our family members and all of these things. And I just recorded hours of his stories, and they're all stored in the cloud and on a hard drive over here, so that even if the cloud screws it up, the hard drive over here has it, so that it can't be lost forever. And so that's what I recommend you do. That I did the same thing with my grandmother's best friend, who she was, I call her my godmother. She was one of those people whom wasn't blood related to the family, but was family. You know what I mean? Like there are people who are family, even though they're not really related, but she was family. And she outlived my grandparents by a long ways too. It is, but that's the mistake that a lot of people make, right? Is I don't want to ask this because I kind of don't want to tempt fate, or I don't want to, I don't want to risk something happening. So then they don't, and then when they're gone, they're like, I really wish I had. Our family has been pretty open all of my life about death. Death is just another piece of our lives. It's the end of this journey. It's the end of this road, and it will come to all of us. It's the one thing that all of us have in common, right? So we should talk about it. I mean, we should be open about it. There will be a day when I won't be here either. And what do I do with the things that I want to continue? Like this story right here. What do I do with it? What is its invariable end goal? Do we just put it to rest at that point? Do I say let AI write it? What do I do? Some of that's fun to kind of experiment with. So, yeah. So my godmother was from. She was a war bride, a World War II war bride. When the American soldiers liberated Brussels, she was there and she met one of the GIs, one of the soldiers, the U.S. soldiers, and they fell in love. And then they moved back here to the States. And I never met him. He died before I was born. But she was part of my entire life. Like, she was there. She lived just down the block from my grandparents' house. So she was you could see her in all of my birthday photos, and she was part of our lives and everything like that. And at one point I went over to her house and took a recording of her talking about coming over from Belgium after the war and talking about her experience. She remembered the name of the ship she was on that transited the ocean. She remembered where her processing center was when she came to America. All of those things, she remembered all of that stuff. And it was great, so I recorded all of it. And when she passed away, I gave that recording to her daughters. And they were like, I didn't know you recorded her. And I'm like, I did. I was just curious, and I recorded it. And so I have this sound recording of this beloved member of my family. And I'm very glad. I'm very grateful. I captured her voice, and that was cool. So anyway, yeah, it feels a bit morbid, but there's as my dad used to say, you're never getting out of life alive. So, and he's not wrong. It's I do have a question, though, says Arbo. During the drop, were you singing? She says, and Better Spec laughs. I like this. Better Spec. She's been singing under her breath since she came aboard, mostly body sea shanties. And Mayrel, what? They're all children's songs. Better Spec's like, hey, I don't judge. Mayrel, you're deaf, Gunny. Better Spec, you're not wrong, sir. That was a funny scene. I like my own scenes sometimes. Yeah, I'm actually going to go get more coffee. I'm getting really spacey, so I'm going to be right back, guys. Now I have something to crunch on. Don't worry about it. I went downstairs and got more coffee and chips. I feel like that's the funniest censorship I've ever heard of. I absolutely believe you, but it's weird what gets censored and what doesn't. It's so strange. I don't know where that came from. I'm sure it came from somewhere. I'm noticing that one of the things that's flashing back and forth over here on my PC is everybody who's playing any game. They're all like, ew, your friend Joe Smith is playing a game right now. I'm like, you know what? That's not important. All right. I've eaten a bag of chips. That'll tide me over. got one more page to write because I didn't realize I didn't finish this page. All right. I'm meaning to put that piece in for a while. Because there's a delineation in the story between those called captain and those called skippers. Skippers are the small ships, corvettes, the destroyers. Captain is for the ships of the line. And it's one of those things you don't learn until you're actually in a ship. And you find out nobody calls the captain except for people who don't know that they're supposed to call her a skipper. So she's a skipper. When I was writing this from the Star Trek lore, there were a lot of keys who got cranky with me for it. And I was like, eh. So now they don't have to worry about it. Because now it's just Latrix Rising lore and everybody can just not worry about it. So we're doing good. We'll go much faster on this as time goes on. Get a message. All right. All right. So I'm going to move this to a small panel on here. And now I have noticed she's calling her skipper here. All right. Ooh. I'm going to get half a page for this. Hmm. I'll also add some user. I think they're still kind of hanging out here. It may be that I set some settings somewhere makes YouTube very super sensitive. Sometimes that happens. I mean to, I just do, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not helping you. I'm gonna go for about 5 more. We're going to head on out. I finished this page. 23. I do all my work on these stories on this page until I am absolutely sure I did the right, or until it's complete and all the layouts are ready and everything is good, because I can see it from here. It's supposed to look as an overview. So I like this better working here until we are ready to get it out the door. So we're looking at a review of issue 2 here. We're going to do the same thing over here with issue 3 relatively soon. This one's got a little bit better. This will be easier to do because there's already a lot of it set up, being laid out. And with that, it's a whole lot easier to not have to, I'm not going to have to go through as much detail as I did with 2. Issue 2 had a lot of exposition, carrying the story around, trying to move the story, trying to adjust my characters together, getting them introduced. There's a lot going on in 2 that needed to be kind of dealt with. 3, on the other hand, is just resolving the story arcs. So it's a lot easier to deal with. Not as complicated. So that's a good thing. It'll be a lot easier to do this. All the pictures are already pretty much already here. We just need to apply our Misegoma into the focus frame need to be imposed in the next one. We'll come back to this. All right, I think I am ready. I'm going to go for a walk with my buddy at noon. So I'm going to go head off and do that. And then I will see you all tonight as usual. We'll be doing our normal Tuesday night thing and back into our normal routine. Remember that there is no day show tomorrow. I'm working in a random, like, I'm not sure why I'm working, but I am thing. So tomorrow I will be working up at Westminster. So I won't be here for the day show, but there will be a night show, just a day show. It's kind of weird. And then we're back to, we don't know what we're doing on Thursday. I may or may not have a day show. I haven't heard yet from my real estate agent, because he says he has a house we have to go shoot, but I haven't heard from him. So, it's a thing. So I don't know. So there'll be a night show tonight. There's no day show tomorrow, but there will be tomorrow. And then there will be, it's questionable as what's going to happen on Thursday during the day, but there will be a Thursday night show. But just maybe not a day show. Okay, everybody. I am OOH. I will see you all later. And thank you for joining me, Some User. Thank you for joining me, Brent. Thank you for joining me, Kayan. I'll see you all later on. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Bye.